There's good news, and then there's really good news, and we've got probably the best news we've heard in almost a year, and I've got it all up next. Hey everyone, it's Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and I am so excited to say these words. Royal Caribbean will restart cruises with Adventure of the Seas sailing from Nassau in June 2021. Royal Caribbean announced that Adventure of the Seas will be the first ship to restart sailings in North America, although it's going to be outside the United States. Beginning in June, Adventure of the Seas will be relocated to Nassau, Bahamas to offer 7-night cruises to places like Cozumel, Grand Bahama Island, which is better known as really as Freeport, and Perfect Day at Coco Key. These new cruises will sail between June and August 2021. Certainly that could be extended, but that's what's going to be available. And these new sailings will be made available to book this week. The new sailings are open to guests of all nationalities, no matter where you live, and residencies. All crew members will be vaccinated for COVID-19 on board, and all guests who are 18 years old or older will be fully vaccinated as well and be required to do so in order to sail. Children under the age of 18 with proof of a negative COVID-19 test results are able to sail as well, so kids are allowed on board. Now, there will be more details about additional health and safety measures announced at a later date, probably closer to sailing, so we'll have to wait on that. Now, of course, this is massive news because first and foremost, it allows a cruise ship to sail out of North America. Now, it is sailing out of Nassau, Bahamas, which means, obviously for Americans, that means you've got to fly to Nassau to meet up with the ship instead of sailing from the United States. Why are they not sailing from the U.S.? Well, that's because of the CDC. The U.S. Center for Disease Control still has a lockdown on cruise ship traffic from the U.S., and there's been really no progress. Now, Royal Caribbean isn't really saying a whole lot about this angle, but at the very least, they're offering cruises from Nassau and kind of an end around to offer cruises this summer. This is a big deal. Royal Caribbean up till now hasn't had sailings for Americans since back in March of 2020, and due to the continuing lockdown here of cruise ships, as a result, Royal Caribbean is now moving the ship to Nassau to offer sailings from here. Now, in order to go on this cruise, as I mentioned, you have to be fully inoculated as an adult. In addition, you need to provide a negative SARS PCR test result for entry into the country where you're sailing from, which is the Bahamas in this case. You have to complete the Royal Caribbean Health Questionnaire available in the Royal Caribbean app 24 hours before sailing. And, of course, your typical travel documents, including passport or any visas you may need to get there as well. Coinciding with this announcement, by the way, was sister brand Celebrity Cruises announced it would restart cruises in June from St. Martin on Celebrity Millennium. This news actually came out before the Adventure announcement, probably about an hour or so. And there was a solid hour where I thought, all right, Matt's going on his first Celebrity Cruise. And then the Adventure news came out there. Now, very similar to the Adventure of the Sea, Celebrity Millennium will be offering week-long cruises from St. Martin instead of Nassau, and they'll be visiting a little more exotic itineraries: Aruba, Curacao, Barbados, Tortola, St. Lucia, and of course, just like Adventure of the Seas, everyone will need to be fully vaccinated if you're above the age of 18 within 72 hours of embarkation. Now, these new cruises on Celebrity Millennium will also go on sale this week beginning March 25th. Now, we don't have pricing yet at the time of this video. Obviously, in a couple days here, this will be a mood issue, but the new sailings go on sale this week. I can't stress enough the importance and significance of this announcement because this is going to allow people like you or me, anyone, really anybody, not just Americans, by the way, anybody, to go on a cruise as long as you can get to the Bahamas and obviously are fully vaccinated. It is really difficult to look past the fact that Royal Caribbean deploying a ship sailing from Nassau is a move to obviously get ships sailing again faster and, of course, outside the purview of the CDC. You may recall that Royal Caribbean announced a couple months ago that it would sail Grandeur of the Seas from Barbados, but that's in December of 2021. This is a ship sailing now in June, just a couple months from now. Now, there has been no announcement, by the way, by Royal Caribbean about regularly scheduled June cruises from the U.S., Europe, or really anywhere else. We're still waiting to hear about that. You may be aware that Norwegian Cruise Line has already canceled their June sailings, but that doesn't mean that all of Royal Caribbean sailings are in jeopardy yet. We have to wait and see what's going on. Now, you might be wondering, okay, what's happening with the CDC? What's the latest on that, Matt? And unfortunately, there's just really no progress yet, or nothing that we're privy to at the very least. The cruise lines are still waiting for basically the instructions in order to move towards doing test sailings. Part of the conditional sail order, which is the new policy the CDC adopted back in October of 2020 to provide a pathway for cruise ships to restart sailing, requires cruise ships to do a couple of instructions. Basically, here's your bolded list of things you got to do in order to start offering test cruises. Well, cruise lines are still waiting for those instructions. Now, what's interesting about these technical instructions and why they're still waiting is Royal Caribbean Group Chairman and CEO Richard Fain actually talked about this in the video I posted earlier this week, talking about basically that the pace of science has simply overcome the process of offering instructions. Essentially, they write down instructions, they figure out what works today, but you go fast forward to tomorrow or even next week, and those instructions need to be rewritten. So this is a direct quote from Richard Fain. It says, quote, "When the conditional sale order was written, there were no vaccines. The disease was on an upward trajectory and headed towards a terrible peak. Testing was less available and more costly, and therapeutics were limited. In general, the situation looked very bleak back then. What a difference 5 months makes. Today, the vaccines and other measures have changed the trajectory from a steep climb to a dramatic fall. This pandemic isn't under control, but it's getting there, and society is beginning to open up," end quote. So what Richard Fain is really saying is things are changing at such a rapid pace, it's hard for the CDC to basically come up with instructions that will actually make sense. Because, of course, this is very much a measure twice, cut once situation. They don't want to keep sending the cruise lines back to the drawing board because a lot of things are changing. Now, Richard Fain also says that he still isn't sure what the CDC is contemplating to address, quote, "this very different set of circumstances," end quote. It's anyone's guess, but the announcement of Adventure of the Seas and, of course, Celebrity Millennium sailing from outside the U.S. is basically the cruise line saying, listen, until you guys get that all sorted out, we're going to do what we need to do in order to be able to obviously offer cruises and, make some money because we're a business. And this follows in a trend of other sort of deployments. I already talked about Grandeur of the Seas at Barbados. We've seen Odyssey of the Seas redeployed to Israel for this summer. And of course, Quantum of the Seas has been sailing from Singapore since December of 2020. So there's a lot of good reason for this move. Now, it's not a long-term play. Don't get me wrong on this. You can't offer cruises outside the U.S. indefinitely. But in the short term, it does make a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people are excited about the opportunity to go on a cruise this summer, including myself. I can't explain to you how excited I was. My goodness, when they announced this, I was over the moon excited about this. But I want to hear in the comments, are you also excited? Are you planning or thinking about booking one of these Adventure of the Seas cruises? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, once these sailings do come out, let me know if you did book something. And while you're down there, like this video, make sure you subscribe to our channel because we're going to have a lot more content with cruises restarting. And be sure to hit that bell icon so that way YouTube lets you know when I have a brand new video to share. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.